So our guest speaker today is Mr. Cameron Kinley. He is a 2021 US Naval Academy graduate and an undrafted free agent with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Cameron Kinley graduated as the class president from the US Naval Academy in May of 2021. During his time at the Academy, Cameron was elected team captain his senior year, as well as being named a finalist for the prestigious William W. Campbell Trophy, otherwise known as the Academic Heisman. Cameron signed as an undrafted free agent with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which led him to the process of delaying his commission in the US Navy. This process brought Cameron into the national spotlight, as there were a lot of policy concerns and conflicting interests regarding whether or not he should be allowed to delay his commission. Following his time with the Buccaneers, Cameron recommissioned into the US Navy and is currently an officer working in the Naval Academy's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. In the next few weeks, Cameron will begin his career path as an intelligence officer, with his first assignment being intelligence school in Norfolk, Virginia. Outside of the Navy, Cameron enjoys speaking to the youth and giving back to his community. He is a man of faith and a man of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So ladies and gentlemen, we are very fortunate to have this gentleman speak with us this morning, as his past year has made him quite the celebrity, as he's spoken on many, many national outlets. Without further ado, let's welcome ENS Cameron Kinley. Show him some love, y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for that introduction and for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak to your class today. I do a lot of reflecting, I do a lot of meditating, and as I think about my journey of life thus far, I'm definitely blessed. I've been through a lot. And it's crazy, every time I think about the football situation, I think about the fact that my high school didn't even have a football program before I got there. I went to this small private school in Memphis, Tennessee, and we had great academics, but we didn't have a football program. So when my dad told me that I'd be going there for high school, I was very confused, because he knew that one day I wanted to play football at the college level. So I really couldn't understand why he would set me behind in trying to achieve this goal. When I got to the school for my freshman year, our head coach gave our football team a slogan. I'll never forget this. It was called "Trust the Process." In the beginning, we were awful, terrible. We had about 30 players. I'd say 25% had never played football before. I was convinced they had never watched football before either. We were getting beat by 20, 30. It was terrible. And I wasn't used to any of this. I grew up a winner. I grew up in a football family. I won little league championships, middle school championships. I didn't come to high school to be a loser. That wasn't a part of my culture. But no matter how bad it got, my high school coach always reminded us to trust the process. He had a vision that we would one day be champions. And we bought into this vision. And so we trusted the process. We showed up each and every day, ready to get better, expecting to get better, ready to work. We fell in love with this process. And 4 years later, after trusting the process, we ended up going 14-0 my senior year and winning the state championship in the state of Tennessee. My high school would go on to win 38 more games in a row, which is still the longest winning streak in the history of the city of Memphis. On top of all of that, I still have the chance to play football in college, so my childhood goal was accomplished. And this was just the first instance in my life where I learned the value of trusting the process. When Mr. Williams told me that I'd be talking to his class of seniors, I was excited, elated, because I just been to where you're about to go. And if you want to be successful in this next phase of your life, then you must learn how to trust the process. I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today if it wasn't for the process. And I'll be the first to tell you, the process is not always pretty. It can get very, very ugly. But I'd also argue that if the process is viewed from the right perspective, then it'll always be rewarding. And so as my 4 years as a college student, the biggest obstacle that I saw keep people away from trusting the process was adversity. If you want to trust the process, then you have to learn how to embrace adversity. When I arrived at the Naval Academy in the summer of 2017, I had one goal in my mind. I wanted to make the traveling roster on the varsity football team so that I could go back and play against the University of Memphis in my hometown. It's kind of unique at the Naval Academy, given the football situation. So it's not common for a freshman to travel. You spend 4 weeks in basic training doing strictly military activities. And then from there, you go straight into a Division I football camp. So as you can imagine, you're a little rusty. You're not getting out of your breaks like you used to. You can't cut. You're not as fast as you usually are. And so it's not common for people to be able to adjust that quickly. But I was determined. I had this goal since the beginning of the summer. So I had to make it happen. And I did. I was just one of 4 freshmen to make the traveling roster my freshman year at the Naval Academy. So I was feeling myself just a tad bit. And then the moment finally came when it was time to go take on the Tigers back in my hometown in the city of Memphis. Look, I don't think y'all understand. I was lit. I was turned. I hadn't been back home since I went to basic training. So this was like my homecoming. I had 30 plus family members coming to the game, former teammates, classmates, coaches. It was my time to put on a show. Well, the moment came and it was too big for me. I didn't show up. I wasn't ready for it. And I still vividly remember when I got back to school on that Monday. My position coach shot me a text. He said, "Hey, Cam, I need you to meet me in my office. I want to talk to you about something." And I know everybody knows this feeling. It's that same feeling you get when your mama tell you, call her, or she tell you to come here or something, and you just know you're in trouble. Like you don't even know what you did, but you know you're in trouble. Yeah, that's the same little gut feeling that I had when I got that text from my coach. And so I went to his office and I walked in there and he was kind of buttering the biscuit a little bit. He was asking me how my family was doing. He was asking me how the game went, how they enjoyed it. He was asking me how school was going. Was I enjoying the classes and all that, softening me up for the kill. And then he laid down the hammer on me. I still remember this like it was yesterday. He said, "Cam, we feel like you have a lot of potential, but we just don't think you're there right now." He said, "You're not athletic enough. You're not fast enough. You play this position too tight. You're inflexible. We don't think you can play cornerback at this level right now. We've decided to move you down to scout team for the rest of the season." Keep in mind, I just won a Tennessee State championship. I'm a high school superstar. And now you're telling me I'm about to go hold bags in practice? I couldn't understand what kind of road to glory this was. It's almost like in high school when you got all the clout in the school, you know what I'm saying? Everybody knows who you are. You walking down the hallway with that swagger, you got your fit on. Everybody's saying what's up to you. And then all of a sudden, somebody else takes the crown. Now nobody's talking to you. Nobody knows who you are. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. So right after I walked out my coach's office, the first thing that I did was give my dad a phone call. So just to give some context, my dad was the one who introduced me to the game of football when I was just 4 years old. And so when I called my dad and told him that I didn't want to play football anymore, you can imagine that he wasn't trying to hear any of that. I called him up. I said, "Look, Dad, I just met with my position coach. He basically said I suck and that they moved me to scout team for the rest of the season." My dad, being the guy he was, he said, "You know what? He's probably right." I watched the game on Saturday. He's probably right. He said, "You're looking at this whole situation from the wrong perspective. You need to focus on the deficiencies that the coaches talked about and get ready to come back next season." I wasn't trying to hear any of that. But part of the process is having the willingness to supplement the things that you specifically need. It's like when you're trying to raise your ACT or your SAT score, right? You take a practice test, you get the test results back, and then you analyze those results. When you analyze those results, you see the different areas where you're strong and where you're weak. Well, if you're really strong in the reading section, then it doesn't really make sense for you to work more on reading comprehension. But if you're weak in the math section, then you need to spend more time studying your mathematics if you want to see your score improve. But you have to be humble enough to recognize the areas that you're weak in and then pour energy into those areas if you want to see improvement. And so as much as I didn't want to, I listened to my dad. And the first thing that I did was I joined the yoga club at the United States Naval Academy. Check this out. I did not know anybody in that yoga club. I was probably the only one that looked like me. I came into the room, went to the back of the room with my mat, and I just did what I had to do to get more flexible. On top of that, I would get up at 5:30 in the morning every day so that I can improve my football techniques, get faster, get more athletic. Everything that the coach told me I was weak at, I wanted to get better at so that when it came to next season, he couldn't use any of these same excuses against why I wasn't playing. And so I trusted the process. And at the end of my naval career, I ended up starting 23 games for the Naval Academy midshipmen. And on top of that, I was elected as the team captain my senior year. Look, failure is not a setback. Failure is not a setback. It just provides you with the tools that you need to move forward. Perspective of failure changes the effects of failure. When I got cut from the football team, I thought my career was over. I wasn't looking at it from the right way. There's always opportunity in adversity. You just have to see adversity as an opportunity rather than looking at it as an obstacle. If you want to learn how to embrace adversity, if you want to learn how to trust the process, then you have to change the way that you view failure. In order for me to have gotten back to the starting job, in order for me to have been elected team captain, I had to change the way that I viewed failure. That allowed me to embrace adversity. But this process doesn't happen overnight. Practice makes the master. Repetition, repetition, repetition. But as a military man, I like to say discipline, discipline, discipline. There is no timeline or time frame when it comes to the process. So you cannot get frustrated when things don't happen when you want them to happen. My favorite rapper is J. Cole. He has a verse that goes, "Keep grinding, boy, your life can change in 1 year. Even though it's dark out, the sun is shining somewhere." That's the process. You don't know when it's gonna happen, but all you know is that you have to keep grinding. So in 1848, there was a man by the name of James Marshall, right? He was a sawmill operator out in the state of California. Well, one day, James Marshall was out there doing this inspection of this sawmill he was building, and he ended up making a discovery that changed the United States forever. He discovered some gold, right? And so word got out that James Marshall had discovered some gold, and everybody from all over the country fled to California in hopes of finding gold too. This began the biggest gold rush in the history of the United States. Well, there was one young man that also went out to California in hopes of finding gold as well. When he got there, he saw everybody else digging. He found him a little spot. He said, right here, this is where I'm gonna find some gold. And so he started getting to work. He started digging hours after hours, days after days, weeks after weeks, months after months, but he hadn't struck any gold. He was getting tired. He started looking around him. He saw everybody else around him striking gold, and he couldn't understand why he was the only one that wasn't getting a piece of this money, right? And so he got frustrated. He decided to quit. He packed up his bags and he went back home. Before he left, he found a junk man nearby that he sold his equipment to. And he told him, look, I've been out here for months. I've been trying to dig. Just make sure you don't go to that tunnel over there. There's no gold in that tunnel. The junk man just said, thank you, safe travels. And the first thing that the junk man did, he was a little bit smarter than the young man. He decided to seek some counsel to see if there was any gold left in that tunnel that the young man had been digging in. And so the junk man found the engineer. He goes, look, this young man right here, he was digging for months, but he said he couldn't find any gold. I just want to make sure that there's no gold in this tunnel before I go elsewhere. And so the engineer got inside the tunnel. He started performing his different calculations. And then he told the junk man, he said, look, you're only 3 feet away from gold. The junk man thanked the engineer and he got to work. Lo and behold, after just a couple of hours, the junk man struck gold. The young man that walked away and went back home was just 3 feet and a couple of hours away from striking gold. Too many times in life, people give up at their breaking point right before they get a chance to experience their breakthrough. When the young man saw everybody else around him striking gold, it discouraged him from continuing to dig. In doing so, he decided to pack his bags up and go. You got to understand that your process does not look like the person next to you. Every flower blooms in its own season. You have to be patient for yours. The more you focus on somebody else's journey, the longer your journey will be because you're displacing your energy and not giving your goal the attention it deserves. If you focus too much on somebody else's goal, you'll walk away when you're just 3 feet from having your own. When you get to college, just like that young man, you'll be surrounded by people from all over the country. I'm talking different races, different cultures, different upbringings, different high schools, all of that. You have to avoid the temptation of comparing yourself to other people. There might be somebody who's stronger than you at a subject. Well, maybe their high school focused on that subject more. There might be somebody who's adjusting to college faster than you. Maybe they had a different upbringing. Maybe they were raised a different way. All of that is okay. Trust in your process. You have to trust in your process. In doing so, it will allow you to see your journey for your journey, and you won't waste energy worrying what other people are doing. When you focus on what other people are doing, when you focus on other people's journey, it tends to lead to excuses. The young man that was digging in that tunnel, when he started looking around at other people striking gold, I guarantee you that he started making excuses. They dirt softer than mine. They don't have to dig as hard. Or they got better equipment than me. That's why they're digging better. They just picked a better spot than me. That's why they're all getting gold. That's just all excuses, right? Excuses are the tools of the weak and incompetent used to build bridges and monuments of nothingness. Those who specialize in their use are seldom good for anything except excuses, excuses, excuses. Let me tell you about a little girl, right, who was born in a small rural town in the state of Mississippi in the 1950s, who had every reason to make an excuse. She was born into a separated family. Her parents were never together throughout her whole life. Her mom was homeless. So she would get bullied at school because she would wear these dresses made from potato sacks because that's all that they could afford. At the age of 9, she wanted a better pace of life. So she decided to move in with her dad. She had to leave her mom. She said, I got to get out of that environment. Well, things didn't get too much better when she moved in with her dad, because when she moved in with her dad at the age of 9, she would begin to experience sexual abuse until she ran away at the age of 12. During this year away from home, she discovered that she was pregnant. This young girl had a miscarriage because the baby was born prematurely at the age of 14. You want to talk about a childhood. Despite all of those circumstances, she still managed to get a full scholarship to college. She always took her education seriously growing up. And so after she graduated from college, she was hired at this news station in Nashville, Tennessee. And then she was hired at a news station in Baltimore, Maryland. So everything's finally starting to go smooth. She's overcame the adversity. Her circumstances are getting better. She trusted the process. Now she's seeing the fruit. Well, like I told you, the process has no timeline or time frame. You don't know how long that process is going to continue. It's ever going. And so at this news station in Baltimore, her boss came to her one day. He said, look, you're unfit for television news. You're unfit for television news. We got to get rid of you. You get too deep into the conversations. Sometimes in life, people will try to dim the light of your gift so that you're unable to shine in this world. The irony of her boss's statement became relevant, and it became apparent because this young girl, this young lady at this point, would go on to start her own television show, the Oprah Winfrey Show, which aired for 25 years and broke TV record after TV record after TV record. Oprah Winfrey would go on to be America's first African-American woman to become a billionaire. You see, Oprah saw the circumstances around her, and she said, I'm not going to allow this to define me. She focused on what she had control of, which at the time was her education. And so she took advantage of her education to change her circumstances. She didn't make excuses, she just took action. The same thing happened when she got older and she got fired. She didn't make excuses, she just took action. Oprah turned adversity into strength. If you want to learn how to embrace adversity, then you got to understand that you define your circumstances. Your circumstances don't define you. I understand that we're living in a very unique time right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, look at us, we're on Zoom right now. I'd argue that none of us knew what Zoom was just 3 years ago. Now we do everything on Zoom. We do classes on Zoom, interviews, broadcasts, everything is on Zoom. I understand the circumstances of virtual learning. I understand that virtual learning is not ideal. It's frustrating, right? But I'd argue that if you challenge yourself to shift your perspective, you can see some fruit in virtual learning. As I mentioned earlier, I've been to where you're going. I graduated from college last spring. Virtual learning, especially in high school, it instills discipline in you to get on that laptop every day and say, I'm going to focus. get on that laptop every day and say, I'm going to take notes. Get on that laptop every day and say, I'm going to be the best student that I'm going to be, even though I don't have anybody else around me. My teacher really can't see what I'm doing at home. I don't have to have my camera on. That's all discipline. These are all tools that you are going to be able to take with you to the college level. So always understand that, as frustrating as it might be, your circumstances around you don't define you. You define your circumstance. And so if you learn how to trust the process and you learn how to embrace adversity, then you will be successful as you transition to this next phase into your life in college and the real world. The young man that walked away when he was just 3 feet away from gold, he didn't trust the process. He didn't embrace adversity. And he missed out on millions of dollars because of it. Oprah Winfrey, on the other hand, she trusted the process. She met adversity face to face. And now she's one of the most prominent figures in the world today. It's funny, whenever a lot of people think about successful people, right? They think they just got placed on top of that mountain. The Elon Musk, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs. They look at the mountain of success and they're like, man, they just got placed on top of there. I'd argue that if you walked around to the other side of that mountain, then you'll see that stick that they was holding on to one time and they fell. And then they caught themselves on a rock and you can see their foot marks. You can see them climbing. You can see everything they went through in order to get to the top of that mountain of success. Everybody who is successful in this world had to overcome adversity. You just always don't see it because we don't shine light on the struggle. We shine light on the results. We shine light on the success. But understand that embracing adversity and trusting the process is a part of success. So after my career at the Naval Academy, I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They signed me as a free agent in their 2021 draft class. My biggest memory about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it came after my first preseason game down there. We had just took on the Bengals that Saturday night. My parents came down to the game, and I remember I was taking them back to the airport that morning so that they could get their flight back home. Well, we're riding in the car, you know, and of course it's my parents. So they've seen me since I couldn't talk, couldn't walk to now, right? And so they're just saying how proud they are that I was able to overcome all these obstacles and what it meant for them to see me in an NFL jersey out on the field and competing, living out my dream, having fun, living the opportunity of a lifetime. And they said, this is just the beginning. You just don't understand. And, you know, I'm just like, thank you, Mom, Dad, love y'all. Dropped them off at the airport, gave them the hugs and kisses, told them I'll see them next weekend for our second preseason game. And I was on my way. Well, about 10 minutes after that, I was driving down the highway in Tampa. I got a phone call from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers front office. And I already thought that was weird. I was like, why are they calling me on a Sunday? We don't have to report till tomorrow, whatever. So I answered the phone. They said, hey, what's going on, Ken? How you doing? I said, I'm good. They said, what you up to? I said, I just dropped my parents off at the airport. Now I'm headed back to the hotel. They said, well, we need you to come to the facility. You can't go to the hotel. We decided to release you today, and you'll no longer be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And even as I tell this story now, I vividly remember the emotions that I was overcame with right in that moment. I remember thinking about my senior year at the Naval Academy when I was the team captain and I lost my starting job and I didn't play the last 3 games of the season. And then I thought my football career was done. But then I went home, and after talking with my little brother and my dad, they said, look, you need to go chase your dream. But I told them, man, I'm not on anybody's draft board. I'm not an All-American. I'm not all-conference. My chances are low. But they said, you don't want to live with that regret. And so I went out on a limb and I declared for the NFL draft, despite my chances probably being -20. And then I remember getting back to the Naval Academy that semester and having to be in quarantine the whole semester because of COVID. And so I'm training for my pro day with no facility in the freezing cold. I'm doing pull-ups on my shower rack. I'm lifting in a track shed, abandoned track shed on top of mats. And finally getting a call back in May that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted to bring me in. And I get down there and I'm competing and I'm finally on an even playing field. Everything's going great. And then I get back to the Naval Academy for graduation and they say that I can't go down there and play football. And so now I'm in the national spotlight, fighting for my dreams, going under scrutiny, getting hate messages in my DM, people calling me this, people telling me that, people who have never met me before. Everybody had an opinion, but I'm fighting for my dream. I'm staying up every night. I'm on interviews from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., working out after, dealing with a lot of emotions, dealing with some depression. And then everything finally came to light. Everything finally came to life, and they overturned the ruling and allowed me to go play. And so now I'm back down here in Tampa, and I'm living the life of a superstar. Beforehand, nobody really knew who I was. Now everybody knows who I was. I was just on CNN. I was on Fox. I'm that guy, right? I'm sitting next to Tom Brady in the team meetings. I'm competing against Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. I'm living that dream that I've been dreaming since I was 4 years old, just for it to end up like this. I was wondering, where is the value in putting in all this effort just to end up like this, just to get this result? And I remember driving down that highway in Tampa, Florida. And I mean, transparency, man, tears rolling down my face. I felt like a failure. I felt like a disappointment. I was embarrassed. The same way I was in the spotlight when things was getting overturned and I was fighting for my dream, I knew I was about to get right back in the spotlight because I got cut. I was like, man, they were right. Those people who said I wasn't good enough, they were right. The people who said that I shouldn't have even tried to go, they were right. Because now I'm dealing with all this hurt. But it was in that moment where I had a realization that changed my life forever. Sometimes it's the journey that teaches you a lot about the destination. It's not always about the results. You cannot be driven by results because it's not about the results. It's about who you become and how you choose to relate to the process. I had to realize that it wasn't the number of NFL games that I could have played. It wasn't the stats that I could have compiled. It wasn't how many followers I could have got on Instagram, how many likes and comments I would have got, or the money I would have gotten paid, or the endorsements I could have been. It wasn't about any of that. It was about who I came from, overcoming all of those obstacles, from overcoming adversity. I went through all of that to be able to do what I'm doing right now, to help other people. I was put through these situations to help other people, but I was looking at look, I graduated as the class president from the United States Naval Academy. That's the #1 public school in the country. I was just the 5th African-American to be a class president. I was able to make it to the NFL. I've been on CNN with Don Lemon. I've been on Fox, ESPN, you name it. I got my own clothing brand, my own podcast. This is all just the beginning. I'm just 22 years old. And I don't say any of this to brag. I don't say any of this to flex. That's never my intentions. I come to you as humble as I know. I say this to you because I want to show you the fruit of trusting in the process. I want you to know that I'm not just talking to you. I'm not just lecturing to you. I want you to know the fruit of trusting in the process, the fruit of failing and deciding to get back up, the fruit of doing everything that you possibly can and still not getting the outcome that you wanted, but redirecting so that you can keep moving forward. The fruit of building a mindset where it doesn't matter about the circumstances that I'm currently in. That doesn't determine where I'm capable of going. And so as I close, I have 3 challenges that I'd like to offer to you today as you begin your last semester of high school and get ready to make this transition into college and the real world. 3 challenges. Number 1, avoid the victim mindset. When faced with difficulties and obstacles, avoid asking yourself, why does this always happen to me? Why does this always happen to me? Instead, try asking yourself, what am I going to learn? What can I learn from these circumstances that I'm currently in? Avoid the victim mindset. Number 2, shift your perspective. When faced with adversity, don't wonder to yourself, how am I going to get through this? Instead, think about how you're going to grow because of it. Shift your perspective. And lastly, number 3, just like Oprah Winfrey did when she was going throughout her life, control what you can control. If there's any challenge that you take today, control what you can control. You cannot always choose your circumstances. You cannot always choose the people that's around you. You cannot always choose what happens to you. You cannot choose what goes on in this world. You don't control the weather. You don't control your teacher. You don't control your students. You don't control your parents, your siblings, any of that. But what you always have control of, no matter the situation, is your attitude, your actions, and your emotions. If you are able to do these 3 things, if you're able to do these 3 challenges, avoid the victim mindset, shift your perspective, control what you can control, then you'll learn how to embrace adversity. And you'll learn how to trust the process. In doing so, you will unlock your full potential and be able to navigate through this journey of life, no matter how many highs or lows you might experience. So just like my high school coach told the young Cameron Kinley back in his 9th grade of high school, trust the process. Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's show Mr. Kinley some love. Thank you for bringing that message to us. For a 22-year-old, you're pretty accomplished and very impressive young man. What we'd like to do at this point is move into our question and answer session. So if anybody wants to either drop a question in the chat, or you can definitely unmute yourself and ask Mr. Kinley a question directly.
Okay, I just wanted to say I really appreciate you coming to speak to us today, and I really enjoyed you coming on. But I do have one question. I was wondering, how do you avoid becoming complacent in where you are currently in life, and how do you find that drive to achieve more success and be better than who you are today?
No, that's a great question. I appreciate that. And it's something that I feel like is an ongoing struggle for everybody. And once you start experiencing success, it's like, how do you keep going? But ultimately, it comes down to 2 things. Number one, you have to have a why. You have to have a why as to why you do everything that you do each and every day. And so I challenge each of you to think about why you get up in the morning and go to school, why you get up in the morning and want to become a better person. Why do you do what you do? For me, it's obviously my family, but I put it in terms of leaving a legacy, right? I want to be able to leave a path that other people can follow in. I want to be able to set that example. And so when I don't have the energy to do something, or I feel like I've done enough, I just think about that young man down in Memphis, Tennessee, who is 5 years old and doesn't really have much, and he might be looking up to me, and it's like, I got to do it for him. And so you got to have a why that's bigger than yourself. It must be bigger than yourself, and that'll keep you going. And then lastly, you got to set goals. Each and every day, you got to set goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and continue to work towards those goals. And that will keep you going.
Okay, I see Kiara has her hand up. What is your question, Kiara?
Okay, so I also wanted to just thank you for being here. I know sometimes like somebody, when you're like a teenager, like about a senior in high school, you know, there's so much things like coming all at once, and it's like really overwhelming, and sometimes you feel like you're not gonna be able to like make it. So like what you provided for us today was really like inspiring. It actually really did help me. But my question is, how do you think somebody can come over that fear that comes with going through the process? Like fear with, not just fear with failure, but also fear of success, because, you know, with success, there comes so much responsibility, and like you have to take on a big role with being successful and also having to go through all those failures.
No, 1000%. And fear is something that everybody deals with, right? And as I was saying in my story, I didn't want to chase my dreams because I had fear. But I had to understand that fear of failure, I didn't fear failure because of me. I feared failure because of what other people would say about me, right? The number one is to feel accepted. The number one the number one fear is to be rejected. And so when it comes to that fear of failure, I feel like you guys gotta block out the outside noise and block out worrying what other people are gonna say about you when you fail. And like I was saying, it's about changing your perspective of failure. I'm at a point now to where when I fail, it's like, okay, cool. What can I learn? How am I going to keep going forward? Right. Failing doesn't turn you around. It just teaches you different things. It gives you tools that you didn't have before you went through that. Nobody in life is successful without failure. So when it comes to that fear, I just say block out the outside noise, trust in yourself, and just change the way you view failure, the way you view adversity, and just try to keep moving forward. It's not easy though. I'm not saying that like it's an easy fix, but just be bold and try doing things that make you uncomfortable. You got to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Thank you for that question. Just to kind of piggyback on that real quick, here at our school, I notice a lot of our students won't even try to do something because of that fear of failure. So that's definitely a really big issue for me and my students. So instead of taking on the burden of that failure, they would say, well, if I don't try, then I can't fail.
Right.
So definitely appreciate that response. We have another question in the chat from Cora, who says, has there been a time when you were afraid of change in your life? And how did you come to accept that change?
Yeah, 100%. When I went to school, right? So I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. And I had no desire to be in the military growing up. My granddad, he's a retired Navy chief, so he was always pushing it, but I didn't really have too much interest. And so not only was I going to a state that I had never been to before in Maryland, a whole different culture up here in the DMV than down south. And then the Naval Academy in itself is very different. And so, yeah, I was scared. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it was something that I needed. You don't grow being comfortable. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to change. Like, you have to be willing to embrace change because that allows you to grow. And so, like I just said, I had to learn how to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And this allowed me to adapt to change better. It allowed me to accept change and realizing that at the end of the day, I can only focus on what I can control. And so when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit, it was crazy, especially in the football world, because we didn't know if we were going to be playing. And that season was awful. Like, we'll practice a whole week and then the game get canceled on Friday. And then we'll come back, be practicing, somebody tests positive next to me. Oh, I got to go quarantine for 14 days. All of that stuff was outside of my control, and that's all changed. But I just had to stay focused on what I could focus on so that I wasn't displacing too much energy.
So something that a lot of our students deal with today are issues of depression and anxiety. There's a question in the chat from Angel who says, how did you overcome your transition from the Navy to the NFL to being released? How did you feel mentally?
Look, I've always considered myself a very mentally strong person until I went through this whole experience. I mean, it started when I lost my starting job, right? And I didn't feel like it was warranted, but being the team captain, I had to swallow my pride and keep being there for my team. But that was tough mentally. It was tough watching the broadcast of the game and them zooming in on me on the sideline and saying this and saying that. And then when I declared for the draft, it was tough hearing my own teammates talk about what is he doing? He doesn't have a shot. Like, all of that is tough. And then when I finally made it, you know what I'm saying? I was literally on top of the world. I was living my dream. When I was down there in Tampa in May for the first time, I was living my dream. Everybody who knew me ever was acting like they were just the closest of my friends. They were like, oh, you remember when I bought you this bag of chips? I'm like, dude, I don't know y'all, right? I literally went from like not that this matters, but I went from like 3,000 followers to like 12 on Instagram, and everybody's hitting me up, everybody's saying this and that, right? Everybody's there for me. And I'm getting ready to go back to the academy and give my graduation speech and meet the vice president, Kamala Harris. I'm on cloud 9. And then everything gets declined, and now I'm thrown into the national spotlight, and I'm getting all these messages in my DMs, and people calling me this, people calling me that, and grown men. I'm talking about grown men, and I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. And then finally getting back down there to Tampa and getting released, and nobody's checking on me anymore, right? It's just my family. It's just my close friends now. All those people who were acting like they knew me, nowhere to be found. And it was tough. That's the lowest I've been in my life thus far. That was my breaking point. But I would just say my support system. My support system really was there for me. My mom, my siblings, my close friends, they kept building me up, right? And I just had to understand that all of this was happening for a reason. And I had to feel what I feel and feel what I felt, right? I had to get in tune with my emotions, allow myself to feel what I feel. But then I had to meet it face to face. And I mean, I'm big in my faith. And so obviously that was the biggest thing that got me through, was leaning on him. But I'll say my faith and my support system, it just reminded me that I'm here for a purpose, and whatever people are saying about me, they don't know me at the end of the day. So it was definitely tough though. It was definitely tough.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, I see there's a hand up. Go ahead, Kiara.
Okay. So my question was, how did you come to the decision that you wanted to pursue football, like outside of high school? And how were you sure that, football was a sport that you wanted to do outside of high school? And like, how were you, because it takes a lot of kind of like confidence to feel that you're going to succeed, especially in a sport, because sports take a lot of energy and like time out of your day. So how were you just sure that that was like a decision that you wanted to make, like to pursue that outside of high school?
Right. Yeah. So like I was saying, I grew up in a football family. My dad played college football. He coached me my whole life. My older brother played college football. He was in the NFL. And I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than me. He's currently playing college. And so as far as like starting to play the game, I don't think I had too much of a choice. Like when I was 4 years old, like I was legit out there playing football, waddling around or whatever. But honestly, my parents made a lot of sacrifices for me and my siblings growing up. They put us in private school. My dad worked the graveyard shift, so I really only saw him at football practice. My mom went back to work when she didn't have to. And so I saw these sacrifices that they were making. So I said, you know what? Football is going to be my vehicle to get into a school so my parents don't have to pay. And so it kind of goes back to having that why. So my why behind football was always so I could get a scholarship to go play in college. And so I was giving everything I had because I wanted to take that load off my parents' shoulder. I wanted them to know that all of their sacrifices weren't in vain. And so once I got to college, I was like, you know what? Thank you, God. Like I did what I wanted to do. Whatever happens in college happens, right? If I have a good career, I have a good career. If I don't, I don't. I had no aspirations of playing in the NFL anymore, at least. And then, I mean, life just started happening. Things started working in my favor. And I said, you know what? This is a childhood dream. I might as well go for it. I didn't want to have any regret. And so I just decided to chase after it, despite anything that might happen, because I didn't want to live with that regret. So I think I think my success behind football definitely comes from my why, and definitely just comes from not ever wanting to have any regrets. Like when I walked away from the game of football, I didn't want to have any regrets. And I look back now and I don't have any regrets. And so I'm at peace knowing that, and I can move forward in my life.
All right. Thank you for that. Just someone as accomplished as you are has to definitely have a really busy schedule and has had that probably since high school. I did a little bit of research. I noticed that you were a 3-sport athlete in high school, playing basketball, football, and you ran track and field. You did track and field. So when you're talking about your sport, you're talking about your academics. The question in the chat from one of my students is, how did you learn to manage your time?
Yeah, it's tough, especially in high school and college. You know, you're young, you're going to have a lot of friends who are out there doing this and that, right? But you got to make time for what's important. You got to prioritize. That's my biggest piece of advice when it comes to time management. You have to prioritize. And it goes back to setting goals, right? And so when I was in high school, I had goals. And I mean, the people I hung around had goals too. So it's definitely, your crowd is also important, your circle. But you got to set goals, right? And once you set these goals, you got to set the path to get to those goals. What is it going to take? And so in high school, I knew what I had to do to get to those goals. And so if it wasn't in a line with that, then I had to cut it out, right? If I had to trim down my social media time, if I had to put the Xbox or the PlayStation away, if I had to miss out on this party because I needed to go get a workout in, or I needed to study some more, right? And it's all about being okay, like being comfortable being different, right? In high school, everybody wants to fit in. Everybody wants to do what everybody else is doing. That doesn't get you to where you want to go in life. And looking back on it is funny because when I was in high school, I mean, I didn't drink or didn't smoke any of that. And I had a couple of friends who did. And then honestly, once you commit to that, it got to the point where they wouldn't even ask me if I wanted to drink or smoke because they knew I wasn't going to drink or smoke, because they knew that I was so focused and determined. I still had fun, don't get me wrong. I still went to parties, I still hung out with my friends, but they knew that I had this goal in my mind of where I wanted to go one day, and that I was focused on that goal, and I was prioritizing different things. But some tangible stuff you can do, I mean, get a scheduler, get a planner, write. I used to write every class, after class. I used to always write homework or study on this homework because you're not going to remember it when you get home. So get a planner, write your classes down, and every day write whatever homework you have, and prioritize what you need to prioritize if you want to be successful. You don't get successful fitting in with the crowd.
Yeah, I tell my students all the time, and I don't know how they do it because they have that $1,000 scheduler in their pocket. I say, use that phone. Definitely use that phone. They have better phones than I have, and I work every day. All right, we have a question from Miles. Miles, what is your question?
My question is, starting off in the beginning, the first couple of things you said, I heard you say that you meditate. And with you meditating, it interests me, and I have a question about your everyday essentials. What other things like meditating do you do that is essential in your everyday life?
Right. For me personally, I mean, I wake up, thank God for another day, getting the word, and then I meditate. And it's weird when you first start meditating. It's weird because you're kind of just sitting there and it's quiet and you really don't know what you're doing. But I would suggest going on. Everything's on YouTube nowadays, right? There's anything you want to learn is on YouTube. So I suggest getting on YouTube and learning different meditation techniques. But I just focus on deep breathing. I call it confidence breathing. And so I breathe in for 3 seconds. And when I'm breathing in, I'm thinking faith in my head, right? I hold it and then I breathe out. And when I'm breathing out, I'm thinking about letting out the fear in my mind. And so I do that every morning. And then I visualize my success. You know, I visualize where I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I don't know if y'all watch Harry Potter, but there's a scene in Harry Potter where Harry's looking into this mirror. I can't remember what the mirror is called, but it's a mirror and it shows you your deepest desire. And like, it seems so real. Like Harry Potter looked in there and he saw his parents. And so I kind of like thinking about visualizing like that, right? You're looking into this mirror, or you're looking into the open space, or your eyes are closed and you're visualizing your deepest desire, whatever that is that you want in life. And you can do that for however long you want. And I mean, I drink coffee, go to work, and I make sure I work out every day. And I always take time to look at my goals. I always take time to work towards my goals. Like right now, I'm trying to write a book. So I spend time reflecting, trying to write that book. Or I spend time trying to make the clothing line better, you know, or whatever it may be. You know, I just make sure I devote time to that. But meditation, visualization, getting in the word, and exercise definitely helps the mind.
Now, I think I heard you say you exercise every day. You talking about 7 days a week?
No, I was saying, so no. So I mean, at one point back when I was in my prime, quote unquote, probably, but now I just need 4 days a week. So
Okay.
if I'm not exercising, I'm stretching or something, you know.
Okay, so I have a chance. Okay, I was a little nervous there for a second.
Yeah, nah, I'm not built like that anymore.
Okay, we have a question from Angel, and we have about 5 minutes left. Her question to you is: throughout your journey in your life, did you have any supporters or guidance, or did you did you give yourself the reassurance? I guess yourself.
Right. I think it's a combination of all, right? Nobody's gonna believe in you if you don't believe in yourself first, but you also gotta have the right people around you who pour into you. And I suggest everybody gets a mentor. I had a lot of different mentors growing up, and the key to getting a mentor is simply just seeing somebody you look up to and asking them like, "Yo, I'm looking for mentorship. Will you be willing to do this?" 9 times out of 10, they're gonna say yes. And so I attach myself to different mentors who have been to where I was going or are currently where I want to go. And they definitely helped me out a lot. My pastor, he's amazing. You know, he's poured into my life a lot. Obviously, I got 2 great parents and my siblings. But like I said, nobody's gonna believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. So I definitely had to find it within as well. And I believe in positive affirmations. A lot of people don't, but the most powerful weapon you have on your body is your tongue. And the way you talk to yourself dictates a lot, right? And so I really had to stop negative talk. I try to speak to myself positively throughout the day and just affirm, you know what I'm saying? I'm capable, I'm qualified, I'm more than enough, I will be successful. And that's not being cocky. That's just instilling confidence in yourself and allowing yourself to be able to go out each and every day and accomplish what you want to accomplish.
All right. Our next question, I see a hand, Kiara. What's your question?
Okay, so I know how you spoke not too long ago. You said that you always that you know you got your priorities straight, but you always had time to like you partied like you know when you could. So my question is, how did you like determine basically like when it was time when you had that time to like you know have fun? Because you know you have all these other responsibilities, and sometimes you feel like you just need to relax. But how are you sure like you know okay, this is actually the time, like it's an appropriate time, or I have time to do something fun? Like, how are you sure to find that right time to have that fun while still maintaining your other responsibilities?
Right. Number one, you got to know yourself. You got to know how much time you need to devote to something and whether or not you do have time for it. So that, I mean, that just depends on knowing yourself. But at the end of the day, we live this life to enjoy it, right? Especially at a young age, you need to enjoy your youth. You need to get out there and have fun with your friends and party and whatnot. Um, it's hard for me to say it because it varies throughout different times in my life. But obviously, if I know I got a test tomorrow and my friends are trying to go out tonight, then I'm not going, right? Especially if this is a test that I need to have a good grade on. But if I have a test 4 days from now and I've already started studying a little bit, or even if I haven't studied at all, 4 days from now, I'm like, you know what, I can go out there and have some fun tonight. It's just about knowing yourself and prioritizing and just kind of doing the math to be like, will I have enough time to still do this to achieve what I want to achieve in this area? If the answer is yes, then it's like, okay, I can go out here and have some fun for a little minute. If it's no, it's like, maybe I need to focus on this. Or you can knock it out now and then go out after, you know? So it's just about finding the balance. And I think that just comes from prioritizing and knowing yourself.
All right. Thank you for that question, Kiara. I have a quick question. So we're in what's called the DMV area. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term.
I'm learning.
Right. So a lot of our students have actually not been out of the area. So their perspective on life is really narrow.
Right.
Can you, and you know, I keep talking about how accomplished you are, and you've obviously experienced a lot of things. You've traveled a little bit, you've seen some things. Can you talk a little bit maybe about the importance of exposure to different things, different people, and how that's been impactful in your life?
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's been crazy. When I came up to the DMV, of course, I'm from the South, love the South, different food, different music, different all that. So I came up to the DMV and you start talking to your friends. My roommate, he was from PG County, he was from Bowie. He went to Good Counsel in Riverdale. And so we would always argue back and forth about different stuff in the DMV versus Memphis and the South, and music versus music, athletes versus athletes, all of that. But it's just DC in itself is an amazing city because it's so ahead of a lot of cities, especially Memphis, right? It's a lot of successful people in DC. It's a lot of networking. It's a lot of fun events going on in DC. And so being able to get out of Memphis and see that, it gives me hope for Memphis, right? Because I see a city that's here. It's just about willing to put in the work to get there. But you can't be afraid of change, right? You can't be afraid of being uncomfortable. I think that's the biggest thing, is getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. I'm not saying you got to go 30 hours away from home, but definitely branch out your comfort zone, because that's when you're going to experience the most growth. And always realize that you can learn something from anybody and anything. So I'm definitely a big proponent and a big advocate of getting exposure and getting out of what you're comfortable of.
All right. So we have time for maybe one more question. Kiara, you're going to wrap us up.
Okay, great. So the last question that I had was, I know you mentioned that, you have gotten some, like mean DMs before. So I know, well, from personal experience, I know that we're already on top of like other people coming with you with negative stuff. We also have that negative talk ourselves, or even from family members or people that you thought you were like friends with. So how do you think you were able to handle that, getting so much negative like comments from everybody, and like on top of talking down on yourself? Like, how do you think you're able to get out of that and like, still push through?
Yeah, so I read a book. It's called The Four Agreements. I read it not too long ago. It's a great book. Highly recommend. It's only 120 pages, so I'm not about to give you a 400-page book. So I think everybody can read that. But it talks about like other people's opinions, and it says that the opinions of others is merely just their opinion until you allow it to be greater than their opinion. And that's a hard concept to grasp, because it takes you being the bigger person, right? And it takes some fortitude for somebody to be able to say something to you, and you just allow it to go. Really, I don't even say go in one ear and out the other. You just allow it to stop right there, right? And so at first I was getting frustrated. I would always type up messages to respond to them, and my mom be like, "No, you can't say that." But it got to the point where I was like, you know what? They don't know me. That's literally just their opinion. Their opinion is not going to make me any more or less successful. Their opinion is not going to put any more or less money in my pocket. And once you realize that other people really don't have the control over your life, like, you write your own script. And I'm not saying go out there and be a little rebel, but I'm just saying, when people say things to you, take it with a grain of salt, right? And sometimes the criticism is needed. Constructive criticism is definitely needed, but somebody says something negative to you, take it with a grain of salt, give them a smile. That's the best thing you can do. Give them a smile. I promise you it's going to pierce them in the stomach, because they're going to be confused. And just let their opinion be their opinion. It's hard. It takes some time, but once you're able to do that, I promise you, your stress level in life is going to go so low, because people can say all they want about you, and you're just going to keep moving forward. They're going to be like, why does he never get bothered by all these people saying it? Because it doesn't matter. They don't control my life.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to stick a pin in it right there and leave it right there. I'm sure if you were in person with us, everybody would be giving you a standing ovation. Absolutely. As I said before, you are a very accomplished, well put together young man. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and share your knowledge and wisdom with us this morning. So definitely everybody show Mr. Cameron Kinley some love in the chat, or if you even want to unmute yourself and give some encouraging words.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate y'all. I enjoyed this, and thank you for being interactive with me. I love doing this.
Mr. Kinley, I'm a teacher here also, and I just want to say, please, please, please write that book, because it's a kind of motivation that is beautiful, and obviously by the participation you got, it's really, really relevant to our students. So I think that A, you being young, and B, having, I don't want to say fame, but having a skill that they admire so much, you can really get through to them in ways other people can't. So please get that book written.
No, you said it right, Ms. Johnson. He is very much the celebrity.
No. No. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
All right. So my class, it is 9:38. I know you guys have to get to your second period class. Before you leave, I just definitely wanted to say Happy Friday to you. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. And don't forget, you guys will be back in the building on Tuesday. So can't wait to see well, I won't see your smiling faces. Hopefully I can just see your eyes that are smiling. So we'll see you on Tuesday. Thank y'all for joining us today.
I'll take care.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
All righty.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
See y'all later.
All righty. Bye-bye.